I was born ready. Except for Jermall Charlo, Errol Spence, and David Benavidez, apparently. Canelo Alvarez, this is shocking. This is breaking. This is the news. Canelo Alvarez reportedly turned down a deal, a multi-fight deal with premier boxing champions where he could have fought any of the three guys that I just mentioned. That's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Stay tuned. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. I feel good. I feel great. Subscribe to the channel. Now, boxing reporter Keith Idec spoke with promoter Tom Brown. Here's a tweet. Promoter Tom Brown told me that a $50 million, what you think you got? Kelsey Grammer? Kelsey Carter? A $55 million offer to fight Errol Spence Jr. at a catch weight of 164 pounds was part of the PBC Premier Boxing Champions proposal for Canelo Alvarez, which Canelo turned down to accept DAZN's deal, which begins with a fight against Dmitry Bivol on Saturday night. Here's my story. So, incredible timing that this story comes out on fight week, but that is the latest news. And promoter Tom Brown is saying that his side, he's aligned with Al Heyman and PBC, and his company, they made and were willing to make that type of wager to get Canelo over to PBC. So the first two fights of Canelo's deal is Dmitry Bivol, and then we'll see what's next. Reportedly, they're talking about on DAZN, Triple G. Hey, no, guys, hey, Max. Yeah, Max, everybody, Mexican style, right? And then maybe M'Baku or John Ryder or whoever. But first you got to get past Bivol, right? And this is interesting. This adds more fuel to what I've been telling you guys on the channel, that I think Canelo made the wrong choice. Right now, as of me recording this video, it is Tuesday, and it is Cinco de Mayo weekend that Canelo is fighting, and it feels dry. I'm just being real with you guys. It feels exceptionally dry. I haven't really seen too much in terms of a promotion or a promotional push for Canelo Alvarez. And I told you that this decision for Canelo to go on DAZN, it just wasn't overall good because it would have been a better situation. It doesn't take a rocket scientist or Elon Musk or some engineer to see the things that I'm saying. Canelo Alvarez, he fought against Caleb Plant, a guy that American audiences were familiar with, a guy who fought on American networks like Fox. He fought on the Pacquiao-Thurman undercard. I know because I was there and I know Caleb Plant, right? So he fought at home in Tennessee, where he's from, against Vicente Feinsbutz, right? On Fox, generated great viewership. So people knew the Caleb Plant fight. So when Canelo fought Caleb Plant on Showtime, they said the fight generated upwards of 800,000 buys. And those were great numbers in today's market. Nobody outside of Floyd has done that recently. Floyd with Logan Paul, of course, right? So it's no mystery that you get an American broadcaster like Showtime, which is owned by parent company CBS, and you get a promotional push. You get the personalities of Caleb Plant and Canelo Alvarez, and they were slapping each other and mushing and pushing and punching and fussing and fighting and kicking and screaming at the press conference. Had a great buildup, had great shoulder program aligned with the fight, and it was a meaningful fight for Canelo and for Caleb Plant, where all the titles were at stake. Then that fight did 800K, basically a million homes. But then Canelo, he continues to be Canelo and make Nello type of decisions where he rather fight unknown, unheralded guys coming off of not necessarily great performances. Who in this room that is watching this video right now can honestly say they watched Dmitry Bivol's last two performances? I don't think Bivol's a terrible fighter. He's pretty crafty, but I looked at his recent performances and he was fighting on like co-features. He's not even a main event type of fighter. However, with this new information coming out that Errol Spence, Jermall Charlo, or David Benavidez were 3 options that were proposed by PBC, they did their due diligence. And I have to make these videos because there's a lot of the racist fans or old media fans who they blame Jermall Charlo. Why is he fighting Selecki? Jermall Charlo wanted to fight Canelo. The company backing him wanted Canelo to fight Jermall Charlo, right? Jermall Charlo wanted to fight against Jaime Munguia, another fighter just like Canelo who hails from Mexico, this time being with Canelo's old promoter, Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy Promotions. And guess what? Through no fault of PBC, through no fault of Jermall Charlo, those fights didn't manifest or come into fruition because the people involved decided to go a different direction. Canelo said, hey, F y'all, I'm doing a 2-3 fight with DAZN, and Eddie Hearn, that British promoter over there, that's who I want to team up with. Dmitry Bivol, the Russian fighter in the middle of Russia versus Ukraine conflict, who doesn't speak English, and DAZN hasn't showed the propensity to really promote in the American market to make a big event. That's where I want to go. And now, fast forward to the future, it looks worse because we just find out that Errol Spence Jr., who just did 40,000 people in the AT&T Stadium, was willing to move up out of his division where he just fought Yordenis Ugas for 3 belts. The only missing belt is the WBO belt that Terrence Crawford has. And now we find out through Tom Brown Promotions, who put on Errol Spence Ugas and works heavily and closely with Al Heyman and PBC, we find out that they were willing to potentially sacrifice. Let's be honest, Canelo's a great fighter. Errol Spence, he would be at the weight deficit. Some people pick Errol Spence, some people pick Canelo to win. Either way, it doesn't matter because Canelo Alvarez decided, I'm not going to do that. You know, so this whole thing looks like a mess. Tom Brown, direct quote, says, fortunately now for Matchroom and DAZN, they'll be able to ride our coattails from our last show with Canelo, which was not on an app. That show had the promotional muscle of both Premier Boxing Champs PBC and Showtime behind it. Because remember, prior to our show, Canelo was kind of off the public's radar for 6 fights in a row on the app. We brought an American world champion, Caleb Plant, to him and put our promotional muscle behind it. And look, we did 800,000 buys in today's world. We also had 16,500 people at the MGM Grand, and we did $18 million at the gate. Remember, he had 70,000 plus people in Arlington, Texas, and he did a $9 million gate. Boom. Ego Stradamus strikes again. So how do you have, like, listen, we live in a generation where people are clout babies. Eddie Hearn, a British promoter, DAZN, a British company, they said, oh, Canelo broke the Muhammad Ali record for attendance. And they had this elaborate, dope Mexican heritage ring walk and all this fireworks and pyrotechnics and all this filth and fluff and filter to make it look like it was this epic show. And so many people were turned up. But then in business, none of that stuff matters. What does matter is the bottom line. How did Caleb Plant and Canelo Alvarez, with Canelo being the A side, generate double the revenue with a fraction of the people? See, this is very similar to the UK games that Eddie Hearn and the UK plays in general. Like they'll say Joshua's such a big star, the Povetkin fight had 70, 80, 90,000 people in attendance. But if you actually run the numbers, Tyson Fury versus Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, oh my God, in Las Vegas, generated more money in their live gate than Joshua Klitschko or Joshua versus Povetkin or Joshua in Cardiff, right? So it's all a gimmick. In business, none of that stuff matters. Like It's just like YouTube, and I don't want to get too distracted, but just like YouTube, I've been on the platform. There's channels that it looks like they have a lot of views, but if we get paid as a YouTuber, the number one thing that they look at is keeping people on the app and audience retention. So if someone has a bunch of clickbait videos, you can get 40, 100, 1 million views on that particular video. But if people click off in 1 second, in 2 seconds, because they find out it was just a clickbait video and they don't stay and subscribe and engage with the content, then guess what? You're not going to make that much money. And I have videos with a fraction of the viewership that make more money than a certain person or a certain channel that had a clickbait video, like a prank or something, that didn't deliver on their promise. So this is interesting. I'll be here to talk about it more. Errol Spence is that next guy in boxing. Tom Brown concluded. He's already a pay-per-view star. He's doing legitimate gates. And look, he has shown his mettle. He was willing to move up more than 2.5 weight classes to fight Canelo to bolster his legacy. It does show how special he really is. So Canelo turned it down. It is what it is. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Subscribe. And I'm out. The future is now. The Hibernation 5s by Kenichi Bear. Hybrid gaming and lifestyle headphones. Out of the box, you can connect to any console or PC. Bluetooth ready with a low latency USB adapter, color RGB, and extreme bass mode. The Hibernation 5s adjust to you. Whether you need a gaming, travel, gym, or lifestyle headphones, the Hibernations got you covered. The new Hibernation 5s, link in the description. Customize the way you hear the world. Welcome to the nation.